Okay, perfect. So these are the 4 questions that were discussed yesterday, right? So the first problem is write a program to compute simple interest. Let me just maximize it. Okay. So this is a simple problem. All you need to do is like when there is a problem given to you, just break the problem in bits and pieces and try to solve it. Okay, so the question is to compute simple interest. So the first thing I need to know is what is simple interest, right? So simple interest is like the formula for simple interest is principal multiplied by rate multiplied by time divided by 100. Okay, so I need 3 values. I need data, like 3 data to compute simple interest. One is principal, the other one is rate, time, and then this is how I can compute simple interest. Okay, so first I will be doing a whiteboard here. I will be explaining, and then maybe I will show you on Jupyter Notebook how to write this code. You guys are allowed to do the same on Python ideally, or any notepad or text editor. But for me, like to explain the things, it is easier to do that on Jupyter Notebook. So I will be using Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so this is all that is required. So first I need to accept 3 variables. So all you could have done is take 3 variables and take input from the user. Maybe you can just hard code it for now to test your code, like whether your code is working or not. So how you will be so if you remember from last class, there are variables, okay, and then you assign some values to those variables, correct? How you assign? You have a variable, so let's say p is my variable, and equals to, if I say 10, so the value 10 is getting assigned to p, correct? So here p is variable and 10 is my value, right? So if you are coming from any other programming background, like if you have learned Java or something, if you will remember that you need to specify the type of data also here, like you will need to say int of p or float of p, and maybe like also you need to specify the access modifier, as in like uh, public p, public int p, private int p, default, all those kind of things. But in Python, it is a dynamically typed language. So whatever value you assign, the variable data type will be same as the value. So if I say p equals to 10, this value 10 is what? It is integral. So the data type of p will become integral automatically. You need not specify those things. So all you have to do is p equals to 10. That's it. So first, the simplest thing which you could have done to test this program is take hard-coded values. Do not do any fancy things like taking input from the user or anything. Just take hard-coded values. Let's say I'm saying p equals to 100. Okay, rate equals to maybe 5% or maybe 5, and time equals to 2 years. Okay, and then I need to compute some simple interest. So either you can take, I just need to calculate simple interest and print it. So directly you can do that, or maybe store it in a different variable. Whatever you are comfortable with, do that. So I can take another variable SI, simple interest, equals to P, that is 100, multiplied by 5, multiplied by 2, divided by 100, right? This is what I have to do programmatically. This is hard coded, but how I will be doing it in program, I will need to convert this into that syntax or the uh, programming language basically, so that my computer understands. Okay, so what I will be doing is SI equals to P multiplied by, I'm writing now the computer syntax, right? So P multiplied by R multiplied by T, and then whole divided by 100, and then print of SI. That's it. Okay, now let's just run this same problem in Jupyter Notebook. So what I will be doing here is, let's take hard-coded values. Okay, so I will say P equals to 100, And then what I took, R equals to 5, T equals to 2. And then I need to compute simple interest. So simple interest equals to P multiplied by R multiplied by T, and then whole divided by 100, right? And then I need to print this value. So print SI. That's it. So the simple interest calculated is 10. Okay. Now, once you have done this, so once you have solved this problem this way, take hard-coded values. Just try to build the logic first for your program. Now you start adding some other changes which would be required. Because now here what I'm doing, I am always going to make a change in my code to calculate simple interest. This is my code, right? This will be stored in a file. And every time to calculate a simple interest, I will need to go in my code and make changes. Just assume like there is an application. Every time there is something new computation that you want to do, you have to go to the application, make the change in the code, and then only it will be able to compute. That is not right, correct? That is not right. So what we will be doing is we will tweak this code so that it starts accepting inputs from the user. So to do that, what I will be doing, instead of hard-coded value 100, I will say P equals to input. Now I will purposely write this code. I will make mistakes and help you guys to debug the code to understand it more. So P equals to input, and then I will say here, enter principal amount. Okay. And then I will say R equals to input, enter rate. Then T equals to input, enter number of years or something, right? So if you see here, whatever I'm writing on these double quotes, this will be prompted to the user as a message. Okay, and this input function will wait for user to enter a value. Okay. Now I will be taking another variable SI equals to, and I will do the same calculation. Yeah, P multiplied by R multiplied by T whole divided by 100, and then print SI, right? Now let me just run this code. Now it is asking the user to enter principal amount. So let's say I enter 100, hit a enter. Again, it is asking for rate. So let's say I'm putting 5, I hit enter, enter number of years. I hit 2 and hit enter. Then I'm getting some error. Now check the error. Can't multiply sequence by non-int of type string. So if you remember from yesterday's class, what did I mention? Whenever there is this input function, it is always going to take the values as a string. Do you remember that? Input is always going to take the value from the user as string. So whatever value you provide, like I have given 100 over here, but this will be accepted by computer as a character, not as a number. Now, can I do a multiplication of characters, A multiplied by B? It's not possible, correct? We cannot do that. So what I have to do, I have to change this, I have to modify this value, or basically I will need to direct my computer. I will need to tell the computer, boss, this is not a character value, but this is an integral value. So to do that, if you remember, like I was discussing typecasting. So I have to specify here, I just need to say int of this value. So whatever user is entering, if possible to convert it to number, please treat it as a number. That is what I'm saying to the computer, okay? If possible, let's say the user is entering value A itself. Computer cannot convert A to numbers, okay? So it will fail there again. But if possible, to convert it to a number, convert it to a number. That is what I'm saying by this function int. So similarly, I will do that for all the 3 inputs that I'm taking. And then I will run this program again. So enter principal amount, 100, enter rate, let's say 5, number of years 2. And if I hit enter, I'm getting an answer as 10.0 now. So that is all that was required for you guys to do. Any of these things for the first day was fine. Even if you had taken hard-coded values, that was also okay. This is also okay. And now if you want to add some logic to it, you can always add more logic, as in if you think I need to handle some kind of exceptions, as in let's say if the user is entering principal amount equals to 0 or negative number, that is not right. So you can handle that through if then else. Rate is 0 or negative, not right. Time is negative, not correct. So you can handle that. How you can do that? Simple if then else. So all of these things will remain same. Okay. And here you can say if P is greater than 0 and R is greater than 0 and T is greater than 0. Then only do the calculation, otherwise don't do it. So then if these 3 conditions are true, then I will compute and then I will print the simple interest. Else, if the above statement is not true, what I'm going to say, I can print another message saying that something is not right. I can say print something is not right. Please enter again or something. Okay. Now if I run this code again, enter a principal amount. Let's say I'm entering 100, rate is 5, and number of years I'm giving 0. Okay, although it should be like, again, you can handle these things, right? Time is 0, then simple interest calculated is 0. Time 0 is possible, but principal and rate cannot be 0 or less than 0. Okay, now if I enter number like 0 for this, it will give me something is not right, please enter again. That's all. This is what is required. So any of these things, maybe you can start from here, then add some more logic to it, then you can add a little bit more logic to it. This way you can keep improvising your code. Any questions? Okay. Okay, let's go to the second problem. Second problem was write a program to find GCD of 2 numbers. Okay. The question was to find GCD, or you can say HCF, highest common factor, greater common divisor of 2 numbers. So there will be 2 numbers given to you, and you need to calculate the GCD for those 2 numbers. Why are we using colon? If I have understood the question right, the question is why we have used this colon here. Mentioned there. So if you remember, this, like whenever you start up, this whole thing is in one block. This belongs to one piece of code, right? If this is true, then I have to do something. They are related. They are related. So when I'm saying there is a block of code, there is a relation between the subsequent code, I put a colon. So in other programming language, if you remember, what you do, you give this curly braces, like if condition, then start of curly braces, end of curly braces, right? Instead of that, in Python, what we do, we give a colon, and like after this condition colon, we put everything one tab inside. Just press a tab for every next line of code that you are going to write, which is going to be within that if block. Okay, you give a colon, which you can think that this is start of curly braces, and everything will be one tab inside. And finally, when you go one tab back, then that is end of your block. So if you check my code again here, what I'm doing, if giving colon, that means I'm starting my block, then I'm going one tab inside. So these are all part of this if block. And when I'm going back on my code, like I'm going back in the tab, like, so if and else are on same line, but everything else is one tab inside, if you see here. So this whole thing belongs to if block, and here my if block is ending. Here my if block is ending. That is how you need to understand. Okay, let me just quickly check some of more questions. Sir, rate can be float. Yes, yes, rate can be float. See, again, I'm saying rate can be float. Those are some of the changes that you can add. I'm just trying to help you, basically guide you how to solve these problems. All those changes you can add. Even principal can be float. So instead of writing int here, you can use float. This is one of the simplest solution which I'm giving to you. You can make changes. You can think analytically and make changes accordingly. Okay. Okay, fair enough. Now let's go to second question. Write a program to find GCD of two numbers. So first we need to understand what is GCD, right? So this is my understanding of GCD. Okay, if there are two numbers, let's say number A and number B, to compute GCD, I will need to find another number C, which will completely divide A and completely divide B. That is, A remainder equals to 0 and A of remainder equals to, B of C remainder equals to 0. So like if I divide A by C, remainder will be 0. If I divide B by C, remainder will be 0. But I want to find the biggest such number. Okay, that will be my GCD. That is the problem. That is the question. So for example, let's say the number is 12 and 8. Okay, so what I can do, I can start from 1. For simplicity, let's start from 1. I will try to divide 12. 1 completely divides 12, remainder is 0. It also divides 8, remainder is 0. Okay, so 1 might be a possible GCD for me, but let's check more. 2 can divide 12, can divide 8. So 2 is greater than 1, right? So I want to find the biggest number which completely divides both the numbers. So 2 is greater than 1. That's why I will take GCD as 2 for these two numbers now. Okay, now let's check 3. 3 cannot divide 8. Okay, so 3 cannot be a possible GCD. Let's try 4. 4 completely divides 12, 4 completely divides 8. Now 4 is greater than 2. So 4 can be a possible solution, or 4 can be GCD for these two numbers. Let's try 5. 5 cannot divide both the numbers. 6 can divide 12 but cannot divide 8. It cannot be GCD. 7 cannot divide. 8 can just divide 8 but cannot divide 12. Right? 9. Do I need to go beyond 8? Is the question now. Anything after 8 will not be completely dividing the number 8 itself. You're getting my point? So I need to check ideally till 8. So whatever the minimum number which is there out those two numbers, check from 1 till that number. So from 1 you check minimum of A comma B, or the two numbers which is given to you, check from 1 minimum of, this is just an algorithm. Okay, so from 1 I will keep checking, and whatever number I find which is going to completely divide the two numbers, I will take that number as my GC. You can do that with split function also. The question is, can I find SI with split function? You can do that. I mean, in previous problem, if you see, I have taken 3 inputs. 3 times I'm prompting the user, what is the principal, what is the rate, what is the time. In one line, I can say, please enter principal, rate, time, space separated or comma separated, and then I can use a split function and accept all the three values in one go. Okay. See, you can all add all those things. Here I'm just trying to help you to solve these problems in a simplest way possible. Basically how you will start solving problem, how you can. So take step by step. Maybe this will be your first step, this will be your second step, this will be your third step. If you think I can do better than this, then make changes there, but go step by step. Okay, coming back to this GCD problem. So if you have understood the logic, now let me tell you how I can solve this. So first thing is I need two numbers. So I will say num1. To make it simple, let's say num1 is greater and num2 is smaller. But again, you can make those changes. You can add some rules to that and you can handle those things. So let's say num1, I can say enter the bigger number. And num2, enter smaller number. Okay. Again, you need to handle all those int and everything to solve this. Now what I will be doing, I need to start from 1 till the minimum of these two numbers. So my minimum number is number 2. I can say for I in range of 1. If you remember, like when I'm saying range is a list of numbers and it will go in loop, like whatever range is this. So range of 1 comma your number 2, right? Number 2. But here I will be saying number 2 plus 1. Why I'm doing number 2 plus 1? Because if I just give number 2, the accepted value for this range will be 1 till num2 minus 1. So this, like whatever comes here, like end index is always n minus 1. So n minus 1 will be included in your iteration. N itself will not be included in your iteration, but I want to include n as well, right? I want to check if 8 can be a GCD or not. So if my problem was this 8 and 4, here 4 is my GCD for these two numbers, correct? So I will need to check till the smaller number which is there. To check till the smaller number, I have to add 1 here. So num2 plus 1. Okay. Now, once I have done this, what I have to validate, that the remainder of, like when you divide num1 by I and num2 by I, the remainder should be 0. And if it is 0, use another variable and store the value of I in that variable. That is going to be your GCD. Okay. So for I in this, I can say if num1 mod of I double equals to 0 and num2 of mod of I double equals to 0, right? What I need to do, if it is 0, let's take another variable GCD equals to I. And then finally outside this for loop, because I need to do that iteration, I will explain you. Okay, I will explain through a dry run, and outside this for loop I will say print GCD. Okay, now let me just do a dry run for this. So the problem was, let me take a simple number now, 8 and 4. Okay, so if the two numbers are 8 and 4, the smaller of these two is 4. I will take 4 and I will say for I in range of 1 to num2 plus 1. So from 1 till num2 plus 1, that is 1 till, from 1 till 4, you go in a loop. You go in a loop and then you check num1 mod of I. So initially the value of I is 1. It is starting from 1. So initially the value of I is 1. It will divide 8 by 1 and the remainder will be 0. Then again it will check for num2. 4 divided by 1, remainder is 0. This is true. GCD will become 1. Then it will go and check for 2. So 2 also completely divides 8 and 4. Now GCD will become 2. So it will be overriding the previous value, and the new GCD value will be 2. It will keep doing this because this entire thing, this whole thing is in a loop, right? This is one block of code. And this print function is outside this for loop. So finally, the maximum value, whatever, like the last value till it was able to completely divide these two numbers, that will be stored in GCD, and that is I'm printing outside this for loop. Okay. So if I just run this code for you once, all I can say is num1. I will write simple code. I will not give lot of messages. Okay. So int of input, and here you can write like enter bigger number or something. I will keep it simple. And then num2 equals to int of input. Okay. And then I need to go in a loop. So for I in range of 1 to num2 plus 1. Okay. Right. Now I will check if num1 percentage of I double equals to 0 and num2 percentage of I double equals to 0, then take a variable GCD equals to I, and outside this for loop I will print GCD. So see this here, if you see, I am doing this for loop. So like this is colon and then everything one tab inside. So this 2 line of code is within this for loop, right? And this GCD of I is within this if block. So this whole thing will keep running till the smaller number. From 1 till that smaller number, it will keep checking and keep assigning the value in GCD. Okay. So at end, once this for loop terminates, once this for loop ends, when this for loop is going to end, when num2 becomes, when I becomes num2. When I becomes equals to num2, it will come out of this for loop. So once it comes out of the for loop, it will print the value which was there in GCD. That is what you have to do. Okay, now let's run this problem. If I say the first number I have to enter, so let's say I'm entering 12, and then second number is 8, my output is 4. So it is working fine. Now you can add more changes over here. You can add messages for the user and other things, and you can say that your code is complete. I hope there is no questions here. Let me just check. Okay, there is a question from Jaya. Sir, can we find SI with split function? I already answered. There is a question from Jaya. She mentioned, sir, in this method, time complexity will be high. Agreed. But right now, we are not discussing time complexity. Those are for future classes. Like some of the classes, I will be discussing time complexity. And other thing is, we may not be doing a lot of code optimization in this class. Like we will be not handling a lot of data structures and algorithm concepts here in this class. This is Python for beginners. Like we will be dealing with basic Python. We will help you to do programming. We will help you to solve problems. Okay. But wherever needed, we will optimize the code. Okay. But for simplicity, this is the simplest problem which is possible. Okay, sir, in for loop, you didn't give number of skip. Okay, so there is another question from Dibya Jyoti Das. She is mentioning, sir, in for loop, you didn't give number of skip. So if you remember, like, number of skip by default is 1. So when I'm not giving it, it is by default 1. So I'm seeing like some of the questions are coming which I had already discussed in last class. So I will urge you guys to go through last class videos once again. Just go through it once and twice. A lot of uh, concepts will be there, because I discussed a lot of things at a stretch. It will take you time to grasp all those concepts. So just go through those videos once or twice. Okay. So skip I have not given because by default it is 1 and I need to take one step. That's why I have not mentioned it. But if you want to explicitly add that, you can add that. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay, so you have understood this. I hope every one of you have understood second problem. Third problem, it is a simple problem. If then else, all you need to understand is like uh, the sum of numbers like on the opposite side of the faces is going to be 7. That is all you need to handle. So whatever number is given by the input by the user, you just need to subtract from 7 and you will get the answer. Okay. I hope that there is no issues with this question. Correct? Okay. There was one question here. Find the average of number of numbers in a list. So this question was purposely added because, like, again, you will also need to uh, like put some inputs or efforts from your end, because Python is going to be, is a vast programming language. There is a lot of things, and if you want to master it, you will have to put efforts from your end also. So in last class I had discussed list in like briefly. I had discussed some of the data structures which are there in Python: tuple, list, dictionary, and set. So here the idea was take a list and find the average. So anyways, I will be discussing list and sequence data types today. So let's hold on this for this question, and maybe we can solve this at the end of the class, or like towards the end of the class. Okay. But again, this is a simple problem. All you need to do is have a variable and then iterate through the list of the numbers which is taken as an input, and keep adding to that variable and finally print the average. I will explain this, don't worry about it. Okay.